All right, thank you everybody for being here today. We are Barnum Desserts Group, and tonight we're going to be talking to you about how to communicate change management strategies. My name is Lucy. We have Nabil, Reed, Drew, and Brandon. So before we get into it, first I want everybody to stand up, loosen up. All right, now everyone cross your hands.
Or arms.
Cross your arms, thank you. Cross your arms. Cross your arms. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Do it right.
No.
So, how do you feel right now? Sean, what's one word on how you feel?
Defensive?
Okay. Anyone else?
Closed off.
Okay.
I feel normal.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I kind of feel comfortable.
Yeah, I feel really comfy.
Okay, now cross your arms, but do it the opposite way.
How?
Now, how does that feel?
Awkward. Yeah.
Weird.
So this little activity, you can sit back down. This little activity is to kind of set the tone for what change management is. Oftentimes you have a certain way of doing things that make sense to you that are just natural. And when someone wants to implement a change, if someone in authority tells you, you have to do the same thing but do it a different way, and kind of those initial feelings that you get from having to force the natural way of doing things. So thank you for participating. So what is change management? It is a systematic approach and application of knowledge, tools, and resources that deal with change. Change management means defining and adopting corporate strategies, structures, procedures, and technologies that deal with changes in external conditions and the business environment. And actually, if you look at change management definitions, there's a ton out there. So the one that I actually really like that's easy to remember, I found on the Business Dictionary, and it's minimizing resistance to organizational change through involvement of key players and stakeholders. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read that quote, or the comic, but basically the boss is saying, we're going to hire somebody that's going to help us with change management, and the employee comes back and says, instead of doing that, why don't we actually do changes that the employees care about or that they support, and then we won't need to go through this process. And he comes back and says that's much harder. And it is. Trying to get your employees on board is very difficult, which is why we have change management. So why is change management important? So without change management, the results that you are hoping to gain from implementing a change are going to be really difficult to get. But with change management, you can, as a leader in your organization, you can get results a lot quicker, and you can meet customer demands. You can help align existing resources within the organization, and change management also allows the organizations to assess the overall impact of the change and then figure out what resources they have internally to make the change happen. Change management also helps you figure out the timeline. It helps you communicate the deliverables to the parties involved in change management. And it helps with employee performance and getting them involved in the change if they know what's going on. So there's tons, like the definition of change management. There are plenty of principles, but I've just highlighted 10, and we can walk through them. They are pretty self-explanatory. But first is you have to address the human side systematically. So you can't just say, we need a change, let's go do it, without really looking at your audience and looking at who it's going to affect and how it's going to affect them. You have to start at the top. So you have to get sponsorship from your leaders or supervisors, make sure that they're on board before you start cascading that information down. And then once you do that, you do have to involve every single layer. You have to make the formal case, so talk about this is your objective, these are the deliverables, this is how long it's going to take me, these are the expected outcomes. Create ownership, and you have to communicate the message, which is very important in change management. You have to assess the cultural landscape. You have to just look at the culture in your organization and see if it's conducive to the changes that you want to implement. You have to prepare for the unexpected, as with anything, and you have to speak to the individual. So even though you're making a change within the organization, you have to make sure that individuals that are going to be affected by this change are on board as well. So why projects fail? There's a ton of reasons why projects fail, but I think the most important is a lack of communication. According to projectinsight.net, a common reason why projects fail is related to visibility. All three tiers of the project team, the executive management, project managers, and team members, need access to the right level of information at the right time. And executives will often complain that they themselves don't have visibility into a lot of the changes that are happening in their organization. So one reason there's a lack of visibility of all projects, and a way to combat that is by having a central location where you can publish the changes you're trying to implement. Another problem is there are unclear project objectives. And once again, you can use the central location where you're talking about your change project and talk about the initiatives and rank them in importance. Also, there's no visibility into the resource workload. So when someone's trying to implement a change, if they don't look at the employee that is going to deal with that change and looking at what they already do and whether it's going to put more strain on those resources, projects will fail. And also there's gaps in communication, so once again, having a central location where you can communicate these changes is effective. So I have a little short video here that is a good representation of lack of communication and what happens to employees. Oh.
Yeah. So I think.
Technical difficulties.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm just. Sorry about this, it worked on our computers.
I figured those would stick.
That's one I can walk over Milton. Milton. No one can communicate with Milton.
Okay.
Love Milton. I want to be Milton when I go out to
They
the office.
do not. Why?
The stapler. He doesn't. I had a good stapler for a
I'm sorry, but I'm
supervisor. How much babysitting?
But that's okay, this will.
I'm just gonna put this.
Who's Bill?
What don't we want?
Major technical difficulties.
Carbs and all the times.
Try it one more time, do the presentation, maybe.
Right, is that what you feel like at work?
Or-
Say back.
Yeah.
No, that's.
So the volume, you have to go into that
I don't
other
even remember his name.
screen.
Milton.
And
Yeah.
then
Milton's
click whatever
there.
Oh, that guy.
computer you're
Yeah.
coming from and hit the audio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're, yeah,
That's what Tyson said. Makes
Okay.
my job is like,
Okay,
like all
apologies for that.
his office back.
That is our.
I know.
This is your. No.
I'm gonna have to ask you to go ahead and move your desk again, so if you could go ahead and get it as far back against that wall as possible, that would be great.
No.
That way we'll have some room for some of these boxes and things we need to put in here. And, oh, there it is.
What?
Here, let me just go ahead and get that from you. Great. So, if you could just get to that as soon as possible, that would be terrific, okay? Thanks a bunch, Milton. Bye.
Okay.
Okay, well, we've had, this isn't the one that I wanted to show, and I won't look for it because I've already wasted enough time. But we've all seen Office Space, yes? So it's the scene where Milton has moved 4 times already, and he's talking to a buddy on the phone. Talking about how he can't see the squirrels, and his boss comes and says, we're gonna actually need you to move to.
Then I don't care if they lay me off
There you go.
because I told Bill that if they move my desk one more time, then I'm quitting. I'm going to quit. And I told Dom too because they've moved my desk 4 times already this year, and I used to be over by the window and I could see the squirrels, and they were married, but then they switched. See?
Okay, it's really okay. I'll just give you the brief overview. So his boss asks him to move down to the storage unit, and he does. He's really unhappy. And the entire scene, what I was trying to show is his boss is just talking at him, and he's not really listening to Milton's concerns or how he feels about it. And the scene ends with Milton in the dark in his new office down in the basement. So my point was, if you don't communicate to your employees, you essentially leave them in the dark. And we all know how Office Space ends. Milton ends up burning the place down. So there's that. Now I will
He does?
give it over to Drew. Reed, who'll go into a model a bit more in depth.
Is it a movie?
Okay, so we're gonna cover a few things regarding change management today.
Kind of a must-see.
But we're gonna start with the AdCard model. So you guys have heard about the AdCard model before in this program in the project management. One of the speakers that came into our class spoke about the AdCard model. I think she was a technology or a consultant of some kind. So Drew and I both have had our companies do kind of like for major projects that impact the entire company. We've worked through the kind of AdCard process, so kind of have some firsthand experience of what we liked and really didn't like. So anyways, I was just going to talk a lot about that model just because it is kind of like a pretty commonly used model in the workplace. So if you guys haven't used it yet, it's possible you will in the future. You can kind of wow your peers and coworkers by having some AdCard knowledge already. So AdCard is an acronym for awareness, desire, knowledge, action, and reinforcement. So it's basically the change process. It's really based off how an individual goes through change, although it's used for companies and large groups. But really, the process is designed to align with how an individual first kind of accepts change, then they're willing to like kind of move forward with it, and then they need encouragement to continue. So that's kind of how the process is designed. So and then within a company, it's a process with entire groups and teams to work through. So in my situation with my company, it was our core operating system. So the entire operating system that everybody from every single teller to the president of our bank, that how they connect with any information whatsoever, and it also flowed through to changing how customers see their information. So it was like a huge change that a bank, 100-year-old bank, really put off for probably 20 years. So it was a big deal. So And there were a lot of employees too that had been, you know, in their positions for, you know, some of them even 30, 40 years. So for them to go from using the same system for like 30 years to completely changing was, I mean, it was pretty tough. So so part of that, like the system, all that stuff, you know, with any bank, you know, all that stuff's pretty common. You know, the technology's there. It's not that, really the challenge is more how kind of users embrace that. So that's where the AdCard system was kind of used. So the awareness piece is just saying kind of the what's in it for me piece. Or, I'm sorry, let me back up just a second. The first part of awareness is kind of understanding the company's need to change and kind of like, why is this really needed? So for us, it was the system's unstable. We need something that's more stable, better for customers to see, you know, their information. And then so you move on to the desire piece is all about kind of what's in it for me. You know, why do I want this? Why do I want to do this? So that was all about talking about with people about how they, you know, make their job better. It'll make their customers happier. It'll make their kind of, you know, going through this will be worth it in the end. So, and then knowledge and action, to me they're a bit similar, but knowledge is all about kind of understanding, you know, having the skill set to kind of move forward with that change. And then action is more kind of practicing, preparing, being ready, you know, to make the change. And then reinforcement is exactly, you know, what that word means. So it's both kind of tracking how you're doing as well as kind of providing feedback and you know, encouragement to keep moving forward with the change process. So so that's the AdCard model. There's lots of books on this. I have a book that we had that if anybody that we used, if anybody wants to borrow it, you're welcome to. It's kind of interesting process to kind of think through. So some of the keys that I saw that were important about the AdCard process were first the strategy piece and having and defining kind of what you want to change is like really key. So if you don't have a good strategy, I think that's where the whole process can really fail. That, you know, when you go to make your change, it can be, you know, there can be serious challenges. For us, I mean, if we hadn't spent, you know, a long time picking out the right software package, you know, it would have been extremely problematic to try to encourage, you know, create awareness and build knowledge if you had not picked the right, you know, gone about the right strategy. So a big piece of AdCard is you can do an assessment. So for each of these, you know, you could rate your specific, if you're going about a change, your specific company on how you, you know, how you might be in that category. So for us, I mean, I think our company, like the desire piece was probably, AdCard ratings are typically 1 to 5. And for us, I would say the desire piece was really low, where people had been doing the same system. They had the knowledge, they could learn it, but you know, they've been doing the same process and system for so long that the desire to actually change was like super low. So you can by doing an AdCard assessment, and I'll walk through that here a little bit more in a second, you can see kind of where the bottlenecks, where the pain points might be in the process. So from there, you know, there's activities that you can do, and I'm going to give you a takeaway on some of these activities if you are going about a change management process, that you can use some of these activities that can be helpful for each of those categories. So building awareness, creating desire. You know, there's certain things that are proven to kind of work well for each of those. For example, for us, I mean, I think the piece that kind of got everybody kind of together was using kind of like message boards, so people can post about, you know, what their experiences are, if they have questions. So it's kind of bringing the whole group together. That was effective, as well as, you know, I think we learned in Shelley's class about the importance of engaging kind of mid-management. So our company had, which I totally agree with, like that was key to our changes, the mid-management level, kind of for them to buy into it. And so there were advocate positions created where they were kind of like titled to kind of be ambassadors for the change. And then just writing meetings, those are all good too. So I think every change, every process, like if you come up with the right plan, it's probably a little bit different. And so that's why I have a takeaway here that before I turn it over to Drew, I'll just pass this out, and that you guys could do, if you have a change, if you have a change coming up in your company or, you know, it could be used for anything. It's personal, ad cards used for personal changes too. You could do an ad card assessment and then kind of think of some ways that you could strengthen areas where you might not, you know, or where your team might not be as strong. So so I just hope that's helpful, and I'll turn it over to Drew while I pass these out.
Alright, so we're actually going to use these little handouts in our class activity. And I'm going to mix it up a little bit, I think. We're going to break into 5 groups, but then that would be you pretty much be by yourself. So I think we'll just do this as a group activity. What we're going to do is and I'll actually skip back to this, but you can also look at the handout. We're going to take a scenario and we're going to walk through the ad card model with this scenario. So what it's going to do is separate you out each into one of those like separate pieces. But we're just going to do it as a class, and I might call on people if you're really quiet. But here's the deal. You brought in some consultants. Sorry, you kind of got my back view. You brought in some consultants, and those consultants looked at what you were doing. They looked at all your employees. They looked at everyone was doing, and they concluded that you would be able to be a lot more efficient in your business if everyone used their offhand to use their mouse. So not the hand they write with. Because the deal was they figured out that if you could get really good at that, you could be quicker on your calculator, you could write notes while you're using your mouse, quicker to answer the phone, save time, you'd save a lot of money. So you guys are the change management team that has been put in charge of implementing this change. To get the company, we're going to replace all the mice, and they're also using trackballs because otherwise you can get carpal tunnel. So left-handed trackballs, unless you're a lefty, you get a right-handed trackball. And you've got to implement that. So that's kind of the basis for it. So we're going to go through this model, and you've got give them those handouts, Rita. So you've got this model in front of you, and we're going to look at how we might have a project, how we might look at the ad card model to implement this change. So first we have A, building awareness. So what do we need to do to build awareness?
Probably need to tell people that this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the things you need to do is, yes, tell people this is going to happen, and also tell them why, right?
Yeah.
So help, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I feel like awareness and desire have to go together,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I don't know that they're separate, like that you say, or just who knows what's happening. I think you have to have the buy-in
Yep.
immediately with it. So, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The why seems to be more of like trying to get them on board too. Like what you're
Yeah,
saying.
and one of the awareness parts is awareness of, so it kind of depends, it's awareness why why we need change. You know, what's not working. And so this is where you do run into issues because most people think, well, what I'm doing is working. So part of that is why, not always why it's not working, but why something else could work
Why
better.
it could be better, yeah.
But yeah, and so you have that desire, but that's also going to go right into desire. If you do a good job of helping people understand why, then it's going to help them build that desire too. So having awareness for change, having a desire for change. How can we build up desire for change? What can we plan into to help build desire?
Finance. Financial compensation.
Financial compensation, incentives. Yep, you can do that.
Also, like, I think people get so scared of change, so maybe making it clear that, I don't know, like, there's like a learning period or whatever. You're not gonna be, like, we're all in this together, we're all gonna, like, come through it together and transition. It's not just, like, learn it or you're screwed. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, no, it totally does. The kind of we're all in this together. I mean, let's be honest. If a company really did this, it would be a nightmare, right? So we picked a kind of extreme example, but
I like it.
yeah, it's kind of we're all in this together,
Try it.
as well as sort of, you know, there's some people in our, and I guess maybe we could, and because I'm making this up on the spot for this example, so there's some people in our company who do this, and they've had great success from it, right? That's where we got this idea. So what can we do with those folks? How can we use them, those who already use their office?
Highlight some elements.
Yeah?
I'm sorry, Carl.
Thanks. Use them as an example and say they've been really successful with this. And then also, people are really care about how it benefits me, not necessarily, I mean, they care about the company too, but they care about me. So if you can tell me that it's going to help my hand and show me numbers as to how it's going to help my hand. Because I've talked to this lady and she used a mouse a lot. And she was about to have surgery on it, and by changing the type of mouse she was using, she solved that. She didn't have surgery anymore. So if you show me statistics about that, then I'll be more willing to use a different mouse and try a different hand.
It's a great example, yeah. So we could put together some fact sheets that give some facts on some statistics, some testimonials you guys mentioned. So set up some people
Have
who
somebody
could-
that had the surgery and have
Yeah.
like their
Some
arm
pictures
all,
of
like,
carpal
flying
tunnel
over.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So, and some videos of, you know, someone who at work, you could show them like using their mouse and the 10 key at the same time, right? It could be pretty exciting. So yeah,
Get to
that's
go
good.
home early or something.
Yeah, so I mean, I was gonna say, get those people to go on your company's, you know, if you've got a
Yeah.
social thing like a chatty or whatever, go on there and talk about, you know, how much time it saved them being
Yep.
able to do it. How they used to be swamped with emails constantly, but now they can reply to the emails at the same time as they're talking on the phone.
Exactly, yeah. So that,
And then they can go home early.
yeah, exactly. You can have them like mixing up a salad while they're talking. So yeah, we've got that. Next we have the knowledge. So what can we do here along knowledge, or it's also kind of in something like this, it's actually a manual skill. Knowledge also goes into kind of ability, if you will, right? So so what can we do? What do we need to do there if we're gonna implement this? Do we just all of a sudden they have a left-handed mouse on their desk one day when they come in, or maybe some companies do that?
That would happen.
Probably have a training program.
Some training.
How to use
Yeah.
your mouse.
Training.
Maybe a practice room where they can go in and like play video games or something fun. with
Hey,
that
I like
left-handed
that.
mouse.
Yeah, something, a little gamification, help them to learn through the games, have some training, have some folks who are set up maybe as, you know, put some people through it first, who kind of can explain some things that help them to learn how to do it, right? Some simulations that could teach that, yeah. I think that would be, I think that's great. Anything else we could do on the knowledge side to help people? One, Reed mentioned one that worked well for his group, if you remember it. He mentioned message, like a message board or kind of a message group. So I know we have Skype, some of you might have some of those things, and you know, if you can get the mouse to go to Skype, you can ask a question, you know, kind of talk about some of your experiences with that. So that can be really good. All right, so how about action? You guys can look through some of these bullets for action. It's some of it's a little similar to developing the knowledge. So it's kind of sometimes the knowledge can be sort of the developing of some of those training and those job aids and stuff, and the action is a little bit putting it into play, but they sort of flow into each other. So on that action, we can put those into play. We can be willing to adjust processes. So we might need to figure out, maybe we're on a pilot and realize that just dropping mice on the desk is not the best way to do it. So maybe we have, they have both of them and they can kind of adjust to them or something. So that's something you can get as you go in there. You can kind of adjust as you need to. Start small. Pilots are really good. Did you guys do any pilots, Reed, when you did it? Or
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
some test runs.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I know we did some pilots as well, so. All right, reinforcement. How can we get to this reinforcement? So we've got people doing it, we've got some training. How do we reinforce this change?
Show them statistics of what work has been done quicker.
That is great, yeah. Show some of the success, show some of the changes.
Take away all the regular mice.
Yeah, you eventually gotta do that, right? Yeah, you gotta get rid of them. You gotta cut the cord, so. You look like you're flipping me off.
What?
You gotta cut the cord, and you gotta just be ready to go to the next thing, right? But you also can go here again and you can kind of repeat some stuff, like testimonials, right? Yeah, testimonials of people who've done it originally, but now you can have people who've been through this change, which are gonna reinforce it. But yeah, generally you gotta move from this is a change effort to this is new, and I'll actually talk about that in a second, another one. So kind of highlight someone in your newsletter who's had 20% increased productivity with their new left-handed trackball, right? So yeah.
I also think a big part of reinforcement is just having like managers actually one-on-one talk to the employees and like reinforce the behavior, not just it's great to highlight someone,
Yeah.
but like, you know, it's good to actually make contact with everybody and just, I mean, I don't know, kind of just like, I appreciate that you're actually, you know, coming on board with what we're doing. It's, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
no,
that
that's
makes a
great.
difference.
I think we did a big Skype, so we went from, I don't know, real telephones, I guess, and WebEx, and we kind of had instant messenger, everything to Skype, so these IT phones. Some people went to headsets, they don't even have like a phone anymore. And that was a big change, as you might imagine, especially